Welcome to the Soul Touched by Dogs podcast, the show for dog lovers who see dogs not as toys or tools, but wise souls worth our respect and care. I'm Anke Herman, and I'm your host. I talk to awesome humans, people who do great work for dogs and their people. So come and join us for today's conversation. Hello and welcome, Kimmy. I'm very excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, I always start out wondering, because I'm always fascinated with where on earth people are. And so my question to you, where in this lovely world are you based, and what's your business with dogs?
Yes, I am based in the United States in the state of Maine. And my business with dogs, well, there's a couple things I do. But the main thing that I do right now is we are a canine first response team. So what does that mean? That means that I am deployed across the United States when there is some sort of critical incident situation, such as a mass shooting, natural disaster, major accident, that they will call me into the situation, and I bring my canines, which are highly trained for this type of work. And when we go into these situations, the dogs are requested to provide a sense of safety and a sense of calm for people going through a very difficult time.
I'm just thinking, Jesus, that sounds tough. So I understand that correctly, that your dogs are not the ones who are going to dig through the gravel, try and find people. Like, that's not their job, right?
No, they're not a search and rescue dog. And I get that a lot. We work directly in collaboration with other first responders. So sometimes we will go into a community with the police department. Sometimes we collaborate with the fire department. Sometimes we're called in one-on-one. And we are specifically there to provide people that are going through trauma support and have that one-on-one connection with the canine.
Yeah, and I think anybody who's ever, looked into the eyes of a dog, like, knows how they can provide something that another human probably, has a hard time providing. So now my curiosity goes in two directions, right? So one is, how did you get into that? Like, what sparked your interest? Like, and it feels, it's also, it must be emotionally quite tough work on you as well. You get to see a lot of stuff that, people wouldn't normally rush to see. And I'm also curious about, how does one train a dog to be able to do that work?
Yes, very good question. So I'll go to the first one. So first of all, I just like to say I'm in the unconditional love business, because that's what we do. We're providing unconditional love through a canine. How I got into this business, I'll just jump back about 10 years ago. I started as a therapy dog handler 10 years ago. I was a teacher in a school district, and I got this amazing puppy, and I thought, this dog is going to be a great therapy dog, right? So I actually got permission from my superintendent to have this dog trained in my classroom. So my students trained him to be a therapy dog. And then going forward, he was accepted to be part of the district to help children as they go through their academics, reading and writing. And he grew up in the school district. And I'm share this story, number one, because when I had this dog, his name is Campbell, he's still with me today. When I had him in the classroom, literally miracles would happen. Kids who refused to read. Kids who couldn't control their behaviors were 100% perfect when this dog was in this classroom. When kids really struggled with math, when they sat one-on-one with Campbell, they tried their best. And I said, there's something to this work, right? And I continue to do this type of work and bring Campbell to school for many, many years after that. But let me share my origin story and how I got into canine first response. My mom was a social worker for 25 years. And she also collaborated with FEMA and the American Disaster Red Cross team as a volunteer. So going all the way back to 9/11 in 2001, my mom was deployed all around the world when there was a tragic situation. And as a social worker, she would go into these communities to provide counseling services and lead counselors, through difficult situations, right? And so I grew up seeing my mom do this type of work and providing care for people that were going through trauma. And I always said to myself, I want to do that someday, but I don't know how. I'm not a counselor, I'm a teacher. Fast forward 3 years ago, my mom has passed and she was my best friend. And when she had passed, I said, I want to carry the torch forward and continue to do the work that my mom did in these type of critical incident situations. So it not only was this a passion of mine, not only did I see this growing up and how my mom had helped people, but it was a commitment that I wanted to make to honor my mom. So I upped my training, I upped my therapy dogs training, and we got certified as a canine first response team. And that's how we got involved in being deployed for tragic situations.
Wow, what a story! What a story! And it's that's like, oh God, that's like, oh, I'm just so gonna cry. So how do how do you keep your sanity in
Yeah,
those situations? You know, because like everybody goes through a trauma like once, right? You know, and that's the big thing, and people get over it the way they get over it, right? But so for you to go into one and another, I mean, hopefully not every day, but you know, so you see more of those. Like, how do you manage to keep your own peace?
yes, thank you. Managed to keep my own peace. Well, number one, I will share with you that this work is remarkable. So when I go into these situations with my canines, it's so gratifying to see how people can start to heal through the unconditional love of a canine. So that is part of how I keep my peace because I'm passionate about this work. This work works. And many times the canine is a link for individuals to get further mental health because many people aren't ready to talk. They are not ready to go get help, but they will sit down with a dog and they start to process their emotions one-on-one with the dog with no words. No words are needed. And I always say, come to us just as you are, because we are going to love you no matter how you show up, right? So that's number one. I love the work that I do. And it is miracles happen. But number two, it is all about self-care for myself and self-care for the dogs as well. So I limit the amount of deployments that I go on. I limit the amount of hours that we are on site with the canines. And I always make it a priority to do something fun, either after a critical situation when I get home, something the fun that the dogs love to go get an ice cream at Dairy Queen. It's called a pup cup. So I might take them to get an ice cream cone and I might have an ice cream cone myself, right? A little bit of self-care, and it's always training. I work out every single day, and that is another way that I'm able to manage the chaos and some of the things that I've seen.
Mm. So how do you, well, okay, like if I was to look at like say Miss Leia, who's like 2 years old, you know,
Yep.
she's a big dog, but she's very sweet and very good natured. Um, how what would be the path for her if I was to think like I want to turn her into, you know, a canine first responder?
Yes, absolutely. Well, the first path to take is to get registered as a therapy dog because it's really important to know that the dogs want to do this work. And that's the number one things that I say to people. There are some dogs that like to work. There are some dogs that like to play. There are some dogs that like agility. There are some dogs that just like to hang out on the couch, and that's who they are. So be sure that your dog enjoys going out and doing work, number one. Number two, obviously it's going through the canine basic obedience test, right? Then it's finding a local organization and becoming a therapy dog team and getting some experience under your belt, going to hospitals, going to schools, going to nursing homes, getting that experience of being out in the public with your dog and seeing how your dog reacts in a busy hospital compared to a quiet nursing home, and really get a feel of what your dog is comfortable doing in the environment it's comfortable being in. After you are registered, after you have a couple of years under your belt of doing therapy dog work and you choose to get into canine first response, number one, it's training on the handler. It's getting Red Cross training under your belt. It's getting critical incident training under your belt, and then it's also getting training under the dogs, more training under their belt. And what does that mean? It means before you become a canine first response team, take your dog out to busy situations. Take your dogs out to communities where there's a variety of ethnicities, different nationalities. See how they are, see how they react. Take your dogs where there's loud noises. Take your dog where there's a lot of energy, because that is the type of dog that needs to be able to do this work. Take your dog on a plane. Sometimes we're deployed, to a different state. They need to be able to get on a plane, on a train. So experiment. And if you find that your dog has that type of personality and can, enjoys these type of challenges and environments, then you would go forward and you would go ahead and get certified as a canine first response team. And what that means is just additional training on the handler, additional training on the dog. You both take a test. If you pass, you are a canine first response team.
You go, wow. I mean, there's obviously quite a bit to it, right? So what's a core quality apart from, being able to handle the stress, to stay calm under, those, like, see, Mr. Kai, this one here, he wouldn't have, like, he was perhaps the most sensitive dog. Like, he would know when you're coming down with the flu, like even before like he would read you too, right? Also, but that level of sensitivity didn't make him very happy in busy, high energy. He'd be like, so I can't see him doing that work well, even though he has the sensitivity to really help somebody. We would always call him like Dr. Kai, when you kind of little, like, whatever, he'd know and he'd not leave your side. Like, he was very nurturing that way, but definitely a little too sensitive, I think, for, taking him to places, and he'd be, so what are there specific breeds that are traditionally better suited, or like, how would you know, or how can you tell, well, what parameters would I use to even think about, oh, Leia might be good for that?
Yeah, and your dog definitely sounds like a pup that's very attached to the family, right? And the needs of the family, and in tune with that. When we were looking at characteristics, I can't say a specific breed is better than another one, but you really have to look at, when you look at breeds, what are the characteristics of this dog breed? Are they cattle dogs? Would they rather herd, right? Or other breeds, are much more laid back. Now, my breed of dog is golden doodles or golden retriever, right? So they have the temperament, the personality. If you look back into the poodle line, they love to work. Poodles love to work. So with the golden doodle, I've had high success with the qualities in these dogs. They like to be out. They like to be among different people. They're also hypoallergenic is another reason why I primarily go with the doodle, because we do a lot of work in schools. If a school gets a bomb threat, right, we will be called into the district to provide a sense of calm for the students. So, but I'll just share one major quality, whether it's a doodle, a golden retriever, a German Shepherd. You want a dog when they're out in public, they want to go up to people. They want to go up and greet people. And that's the biggest thing to watch with your dog and say, is this dog going to be successful at this work? It doesn't matter if someone's sick. It doesn't matter of the age. It doesn't matter of the energy. If you take your dog out there and they're constantly wanting to go up to people, and there is no stress sign in that dog. Stress signs in dog is the head is down, the tail's between the legs. Maybe they lean on the owner and they don't really want to go over there. We're trained in looking at stress signs for our dogs, right? If that is not present and your dog is continuing wanting to go up to other people, regardless of the situation, that is the number one characteristic we look for, because that is saying that they love the work that they are doing and they love being with people despite the energy or whatever they may be sensing in the room at that time. They are still enjoying wanting to meet new people.
Mm. I love that. I'm just thinking, so, and would they have to have like a calm temperament, or is that something that can be trained?
Depends how old they are. It definitely cannot be trained. I think the calm temperament is, they either have it as they get older or they don't. I know there's a couple of first response dogs that are about 3 years old, younger dogs. And I'll tell you what works for these guys, because they are calm overall, but they've got to get the zoomies and the energy out, is that when some of the responders get a call, they'll take their dog out for an hour and just play before they go on site, right? My dogs, I've got a 13-year-old golden doodle that's been doing this work for 13. I've got a 6-year-old golden doodle. So they are pretty much calm. And the mental work is what's kind of exhausts them. But again, it's really, you got to look at the personality of the dog, right? They all have energy. They all want to play. But at the end of the day, do you have a dog that really is kind of mediocre, calm, can settle down? Or is it a dog that always wants to jump and be busy? And so it's just something that it's the way they are. And it's, you just work through it. If there's a little bit of the excitement in the beginning. But generally that's what I do, because when I pick out my puppies to do this work, I meet the breeder, I meet the parents, and I really, really get to know the personality of that puppy before I decide that they would be the right fit for this work.
No, because I'm just thinking of here, Mrs. Ada, like she's like, she approaches the world with like, I'm cute and you know it, right? So she's
Pet
very
me.
much, and very happy-go-lucky, and still she's a big dog. So in the street, I always like, I don't want her to go up to people, because when she gets excited, she's big, right? So, and I don't, I don't want her to get overexcited, so it's just an interesting one to kind of scan my own, like look at what you've just sort of described and think like, okay, which of my dogs would be suitable, not suitable, whatever. So it's actually quite fascinating. Do you find they need some kind of, like, how much of what's going on, because you mentioned like, school shootings and stuff like that, and the trauma that they help people through, how much of that is kind of, are they taking that on, or are they just like, nope, I'm in the moment, and once the scene is over, I'm good? Like, is there something that you need to help them to get through afterwards, or can they just absorb that?
Oh no, they take it all in. And they absorb it, and they do need to release it afterwards. They really do. It's not like they just go in, because dogs are very intuitive, they're very sensitive, and they take on our stress, they take on our anxiety, they take on the depression. So I can tell, number one, I'll watch body language. When they have taken too much on, what happens is they'll start to lay down. They'll start to lay down, and that's their sign to me, like, I'm
Gotta
done.
go.
I'm maxed. I gotta go. And I set that boundary. And when I see that,
Yeah.
I say very respectfully, I'm sorry, but we're done. We'll be
Yeah.
back tomorrow. And then what I do is I take them home, and we always play with a toy. I always do something to get them moving, to get that energy out, right? And make something fun. So it's always play afterwards. Even if you think, well, God, are they, I think they're fine. They're not. They've
Mm.
got to let it out. And they
Yeah.
also have to know they did a good job.
Yeah.
And it's really important that they continue to love this work. And that's why I'm so in tune to their body language and always rewarding after going into a situation, because I want them to continue to enjoy the work. And the day that they don't, then they're retired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that. I love that. I mean, that's also, I think it does give a sense of purpose as well. Like I would imagine, like if the whole situation doesn't sort of stress them out, it's very rewarding for them as well. That sense of like, I know I actually, do work that matters. I know just like my little Leia, like she's a Spanish Mastiff. So her thing is like, I need to make sure everybody's safe here at night. Right. And so you can see her with that sense when she's sitting on the porch and like, okay, and then she comes in and checks in on everyone. So like she takes her work very seriously. Right. So it's kind of cute, but it's also like, it's the set you can really almost see in her face that satisfaction of I've got work to do here.
Yeah,
So I think it's rewarding for them as well.
very much so. Very much
Mm.
so. And what's really interesting in the fact is, last year we had a mass shooting here in Maine, right? So there were all these critical places that we were deployed to that people could go to for mental health or just be supported by the community. Here's my point in this. The people would come up and they would develop a relationship, let's say with one of my dogs, Campbell. The rewarding part for Campbell is that the next day, if that same person came into this critical center, he would find that person out of 50 other people. He would find that person and go up to that person. And I know he remembered and he was checking in to say, are you okay today? And that's another area where we know our dogs love the work that they do and they want to make sure that we're okay. Yeah.
So where can people find out more about you and about the work you do and, come a little closer into your world?
Yes, come on closer into my world. Yes, you can find me. My website is KimberlyHelene, HELENE.com. You can find me on Facebook. It's Canine First Response Maine. You can also find me on Instagram, which is Canine First Response Maine. And reach out at any time if you're interested. I don't care if you're in the United States or Spain. If you're interested in getting into this type of work, I am a trainer. I work with handlers and dogs that want to go out in the field and do this type of work. So contact me at any time, even if you don't know how to start and you're like, hey, I don't even know the first thing what to do. I can help you through the process. I would love to talk to you, and I'm here to support you because my passion is to get more dog handlers, teams, canine first response teams, therapy teams out in the world because this work makes a huge difference in the lives of so many people.
I love that so much. And I'm sort of, my mind is going, well, actually, if the more teams there are, the less dramatic the incident has to be, right? It's almost like, well, it could be in schools for exams and, and like a lot more situations where this could help. So I love that.
Absolutely. And I also work with professionals. I work with therapists that want to bring their dog to work full time. So my goal, and it's happening here in the States, I don't know about Spain, but dogs are now being trained to go and work full time in school districts and hospitals and courtrooms and in mental health facilities. So
That's
I
wonderful.
support professionals and how to do that as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was eye-opening and it's got my mind spinning. So, no, yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. We're obviously going to pop the links and, contact details in the show notes and below this video. So you're going to be easy to find. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. And remember, the unconditional love of a dog heals all.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review so other dog lovers can find the show. If you haven't already, head over to soultouchedbydogs.com and sign up for weekly doggy cuteness, tips, recommendations, and personal stories to warm your dog-loving heart. And if you know a awesome human you think I should interview, I'd love an introduction. Email me at Anke, that's ANKE, @soultouchedbydogs.com.